Welcome back to Aspire to Lead, and I am so thankful to be with you. My family and I had just spent the last week traveling from Texas to Colorado in a big move, almost 1,000 miles away, and it was quite the experience. Everything went well, but as you probably can imagine, it was an extensive process, and we are so happy to be in the state of Colorado with the beautiful mountains, and I'm just so thankful to have my office up and running and to be able to bring this podcast to you today. Before I begin the conversation with Lindsay Titus, I just want to let you know that myself and Jeff Gargas from the Teach Better team will be at Hot Springs Technology Institute. They had this fantastic conference during the summer, and it's going to be going on for 4 days. It'll be June 12th and 13th for the pre-conference, which we'll be speaking on podcasting during that time. And then we've also got the conference, which is from June 14th to 15th. And I'll be speaking on Aspire to Lead for Aspire Leadership, and then also on trauma-informed practices. So very excited about this conference coming up soon. And I can't wait to be in Arkansas again with Jeff Gargas, and hopefully we will see you there. Now on to my conversation with the wonderful Lindsay Titus, who is connected to the Teach Better team in so many different facets. And she's just an amazing leader and is providing so much value, not only to her district, but also to so many around this country. I cannot wait to dive into her story as she discusses how she started off as an assistant principal this past year and realized that it was not quite the position that she had envisioned, and how she is now back in her role as a behavior specialist. Welcome back, everyone, to Aspire to Lead, where we will be discussing the visions, inspirations, and experiences from top educational leaders. My name is Joshua Stamper, and you can connect with me on Twitter or on Instagram at Joshua_Stamper. Aspire listeners, I am so excited because I have a good friend, but also an amazing educational leader. She's a behavior specialist. She's infiltrated the Teach Better team in every way possible, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But I have the fantastic Lindsay Titus with me. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining me on the Aspire to Lead podcast.
Oh, thanks so much for having me back. I'm excited.
Yeah, I was super pumped to see you on the schedule, and it has been a little while. I think you said July of when?
July of 21.
Oh my goodness. Too long. Too long.
Although it has been a while.
You grace me with your presence every Tuesday morning in the Eduprenuer Mastermind, which I absolutely love your participation and what you offer to that group. It's such a phenomenal group of educators. And then I got to see you at Teach Better 22 also.
Yes, in person. It was awesome. I still relive that weekend numerous times.
Well, I want to get your take because we all got to go out to Akron, Ohio, and experience that firsthand. So I want your take on Teach Better 22. How was it for you?
Yeah, so, I really was introduced to the Teach Better team during the pandemic, as I think many, many people were. Suddenly I found myself at home, not as connected with my school district because I had recently just started there like 1 or 2 years prior, and really feeling like I need connection. Like I need to connect with people. And so I did that virtually and, got to know so many people, including yourself, like so well, right? We knew each other so well, but to be able to see people face to face, to be able to give hugs, to be able to laugh, to be able to catch up in real time, I guess, if you will. It just gave me like the biggest boost in my step for, returning back to my building, that Monday. And what's just really cool, and I believe a lot in energy, it's a lot of what I do and teach and, coach educators on, that energy is contagious. And you felt it in that space. I think you still feel it when people talk about it. Like you just mentioned it, like you get this like excitement because that energy, it truly is contagious across anybody there or anybody in that community. So that's what I really took from it, is like it reignited the passion within me to be the educator that I know I want to be.
Yeah. And it was so phenomenal to see so many people that you knew, but you had never met in person. I remember just like turning to my right and you were just like there. And I was like, oh my goodness, Lindsay Titus is here next to me. It was so much fun. And you volunteered your time and you helped out in such a phenomenal event. It was so fun to see those educators and like you said too, the energy, you felt it right away when people were coming in the building, the excitement level was there, but then also the growth. People were not only connecting, but learning from each other. And it was such a special time. And I'm so glad that you were a part of it and that I got to meet you in person. But I want to touch on something that you had mentioned, because that boost of energy that you needed, you were in a position, and that was in assistant principal role, which was different than the last time you were on the podcast. And I want to talk through that, because it sounded like from when we were talking at the conference that you were struggling. And I want to hear about that story and what your experience was as an assistant principal.
Yeah, absolutely. So during the pandemic, I took that as an opportunity to go back to school. And I think that's what I was actually doing last time I was on the show, is finishing up that certification program. And I finished. There was openings in my district for assistant principals. I interviewed, and I was given a position as an assistant principal at one of our junior high schools that was going to start. It ended up not starting until October of that year of 2021. And so I did that position for just about 2 years. So just about until this April of 23. And it was a very difficult transition for me, more so on the personal side, but also on the professional. So the day I switched from a behavior specialist position in my district to an assistant principal, and the day that I made that switch is the day I found out I was pregnant with our second daughter. And so my first year as an AP, which was, really first year back, like full, everybody's in the buildings, like full back. I was also pregnant and it was not the easiest, right? No. Super grateful, but was not the easiest. And then, fast forward my second year, we have a newborn at home, so sleepless nights, just life with a newborn. And so that wasn't ideal, right? But we don't get to pick the outcomes, right? We don't get to pick the results. And so I tried my best, right? I tried to show up every day and give it what my best was that day, which it differed, right? It differed every day. But ultimately, towards the last few months, really, I would say around like February, March, it was really just like, what can I do to get to the end of the school year? Which I don't love that mindset. That's never been my mindset as an educator. It's always, what can I do today to be the best and ignite the best in those that I'm serving? And so I knew something had to change because, I had made great connections. I loved working with the students. I loved working with the staff. I learned so much in the position, but I realized over the 2 years, it's not the position for me. And that I really do love, instructional coaching for our students with special needs and our staff that work in those classrooms. I have a pure passion for behavior, but really more aimed at preventative and proactive tier 1, tier 2 level behavior. So there was just a lot that went into it. And as things happened, there was a reopening back in my district for behavior specialist. And I took the leap and I said, would it be possible for me to return? And my district has fully supported me and had me, switch back into that role right after our April break. So I've been back in this role for about a month. And it has really been, it reignited my passion to serve and do what I do at my school.
Okay, I want to talk about that process, because I'm thinking that the perception, or maybe the way I would internalize it, is people are going to think I'm a failure. And this isn't the pathway that most people take. It's usually to ascend into another position, right? So I'm an assistant principal. I have to go and become a principal. And for you, you're like, no, I can already tell this is not right for myself and for my family. I'm going to make a shift. So what was the mental aspect of that, and how did you kind of hurdle through some of the ideas that people may have on yourself?
So I think the biggest thing is my mindset going in and going into that role and any role now, was not in the past, now is I'm Lindsay before anything I do. So who I am, right? Who I'm going to be, who I'm going to show up as is way more important than my job title. I had that at my core. And so it made my decision easier. Didn't make it easy, but it made it easier because I had lost sight of who I was. Like I was having thoughts that I'm like, this is like thoughts that I was having like 15 years ago. I'm like, what is going on? And, after all the work I've done, I started listening to them. I'm like, okay, they're going to guide me. And it's ultimately having a truth that we live almost in this culture where our lives are almost mapped out for us. Like you said, right? Like at a young age, it's you do well in school, so you can go to college, you do well in college, so you can get a job, you do well at your job, so you can get a promotion, you do job the promotion, so on and so forth. And so we end up doing behaviors and we end up doing things for some future version of ourselves that we don't even know if that's what we want. And so as I was going through this role, I could have told you, I did tell actually my other assistant principal by month 2, I was like, this isn't for me, because I knew I didn't want to be a principal. Like, and I knew that before I even started, but I also knew that this role would give me building level experience, because all I've really had is district level. And I really wanted to see, that building level feel, that community, that climate and culture within a school building. But I knew that it wasn't, but I also knew I took that role too, to be pushed and grow. So it's this balance of like, well, is this too much growth? Is it too much expansion? Can I really handle it? And it's not that my colleague, my assistant principal, kept me in check the last couple months. Cause I texted her and I said, I just can't do this. And she was like, hold up, you can do it, just not right now in the season that you're in. And it was what I needed to hear. I'm like, you're right. And it wasn't serving me to do it. And that's what I really believe in. If you're doing something that's not serving you, there is something else out there. There is a different path. There's a bend in the road that you can take that will serve you so you can serve others. And for me, this is that position right now. It's not my long-term position. I know that, but I also have so much more clarity now about what that position is, that I'm almost creating it in my mind and on paper, so that I know when the opportunity presents itself, it's like, that is what I want. And so we can look at things as failures, but it's how are you defining failure, right? If I don't fail, I don't grow. And a standard I live by is I live for growth. And so it's coming to terms with, okay, yeah, I might've failed, and that's a good thing. That's actually serving me. But I will add real quick too. I did have, because I want to be as transparent. I mean, the day I switched back to my behavior specialist role, I walked into my office, same office I had 2 years ago. I'm sitting at the same cubicle I sat at 2 years ago. And I had a moment where tears were just in my eyes. I went backwards, right? I went backwards. What am I doing? And I made a wrong choice. And luckily, because of the work I've done, I was able to stop that thought pattern and say, but I'm not the same person I was 2 years ago. Might be the same seat. It might even be the same chair. It's the same desk. It's not the same me. I have so much more experience. I have so much more knowledge that I've already brought to this position. And so when we remind ourselves of who we are, it makes the decisions we get to make a little bit easier, because when they relate to you, you can trust that you've made the right call. So for me, that's the process, if that makes sense, that I went through.
Yeah, I love the process. And that's kind of what I wanted to get at was, for people who are potentially in a position now that is not fulfilling to them, and they know they need to be somewhere else, maybe some guidance as to how to filter through that to get to the point of making a change, because a lot of times change is tough, and there are a lot of other pieces to that puzzle to get to the place that you need to be. But I know for you, you're probably one of the most intentional folks that I know, and that's why I love picking your brain, Lindsay, is because you really do have a process of sitting down, reflecting, and trying to determine, okay, what is my core? What is my belief here? And then once you identify that, that's when you can then start making the action steps to go in the direction that you need to go. And so I'm looking at you, and you seem happier than, and please don't take that as a slight, as you were, even a couple months ago. So kudos to you for making the change and doing what's best for you personally and for your family. But second of all, I want to know, was there something that you went through as far as a process to identify where you needed to go? Because I know your book is one of these things that it's essentially a journal, right, of reflection. So I didn't know was it just doing things that you wrote in your book, or were there some additional things that you put in place to make sure that you were going in the correct direction?
Yeah, so I definitely go a lot to writing when I'm feeling this resistance, right? When I start to feel I don't know what to do. I don't know what the next step is. For me, the best way for me to get that out is writing. And so I did. I used my journal. I mean, 9 times out of 10 too, I just take a plain sheet of paper and just brain dump my thoughts, get them all out. But I always tell people, like, if you are musical, like, write a song about it, right? If you're an artist, draw it out. I am just not either of those things. I'm not even going to pretend to be. I heard a quote once and I don't remember who said it, but it was, don't quit after your worst day. Quit something after your best day. And, again, you can define quit however you want. And that was ultimately, I had, and it was a week towards the end of January that it was actually like what I would call quote unquote good week. I wasn't highly stressed at work. Things like were in place. Like I was making really good strides with students, and I still was coming home like, this isn't for me. Like there was still a feeling of I'm not there. And so I journaled out, what do I love? I go to the cliche, like pros and cons list, right? But I do it, what's serving me and what's not serving me. I think sometimes when we do pros and cons or positive and negative, we immediately make something right and wrong. And to me, it's just about what aligns to you. Like what is serving you right now in the season that you're at and what is not serving you. I am someone, if you know my history, I've had several jobs in education because I hadn't found the right fit. And each time I didn't necessarily do it this structured. That's what it came down to for me, is what part of this serves me, and is that like a higher level than the things that aren't. And once that these aren't serving me kind of weighs more, then I know it's time to take a next step and see what else is out there. And so, as I was journaling out, I kept going back to behavior because that is what I absolutely love. And again, the reason that I had went from behavior specialist to admin is I wanted growth, right? So I think whichever direction you're looking, whether you're going forward or backward, it's all the same. If you are looking for growth and expansion, then, look for a position that's going to afford you growth and expansion. Part of my hesitation initially to go back into this role is I was looking at it as that way, a backwards move. And I had to, again, redefine the script in my head that we don't go backwards. We only move forwards. Because like I said, I'm a brand new person than I was 2 years ago. And so I realized like I was holding myself back by saying I can't grow in this role anymore, because now I absolutely can. I have this huge new mindset and perspective from my administrative courses and my time as an AP that I didn't have before. And so I think it really is, our thoughts lead the way, right? Our thoughts lead our actions. And so however you can get into your thoughts and without judgment, without shame, without guilt, and just see them and be aware of them, that is really for me what guides then my ability to take action that aligns to me.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. You can find out more at teachbetter.com/podcasts. Now let's get back to the episode.
All right, so I'm looking on your website, DEFINE YOUniversity.com, and I can see that there's a bundle that you have on your website for your journal, your 90-day journal. So, if someone is trying to work through some difficulties similar to what you have gone through, is your journal something that would help them through that process?
I think so. Absolutely. So there's a journal. And then I also, affirmations are, one of my go-to strategies, which is why I made cards for educators. We see it a lot with, especially on social media, you see it for students, right? People will make the affirmation stations. They will put the affirmations around the mirror. But the number one question I then ask teachers when I see that is, when's the last time you used it? When's the last time you made affirmations that work for you? Now, people that work with me, they're like, this morning, right after lunch, because they know how important that mindset is. And so if it's good for kids, it's great for us, and vice versa. If it's good for us, I guarantee it's good for our students. And so, I had an educator that was using the journal that was like, your journal got me through flying by myself for the first time, because I was able to, recognize that my fear was the power I needed to do this new thing. And so in it, there's daily doses of inspiration, which are poems that I wrote to just inspire, encourage, and motivate. But there's also a daily affirmation. There's room for gratitude and celebrations, which for me are like your bookends of like creating the life you want, right? Anchor in celebrations and anchor in gratitude. And then the other side is really reflective. It's some reflective questions, and then you get to use it. So it's a guided type journal, but with a lot of room for you just to get your thoughts out. because that's nine times out of 10, when people feel stuck, it's because they're having this tug of war in their mind between the past and what they, what happened, and the future, what they want to happen. And we forget that we can just drop the rope and focus in on this moment right here, which is really what the act of journaling helps you with.
Yeah, I have the book. I have used the resource. It is wonderful. It's got prompts in there and it's beautifully set up. Make sure you go and check that out as soon as possible. Lindsay, I lean on you a lot on stress strategies. And I feel like this time of year, especially, and we saw this in the mastermind this last month, of people just kind of listing all the things that need to get done by the end of the school year. And you can just see in their face the worry of the job and how many hours they're working, especially in admin. So for our leaders, what are some stress strategies that you like to use, or maybe you coach other folks in education to help them through this time of year?
So it really, and I don't want to oversimplify this, but it really does come down to the thoughts that we're having, right? And so it is a lot more than that, obviously. But if the thoughts I'm having is there's never enough time, guess what I'm going to find? I'm going to find experiences that tell me there's never enough time. If I have the thought and the mindset of time is limitless, there's always enough time because time is expansive, then I'm going to find opportunities to practice time being expansive. And we've all done it. We've all had that minute that has felt like an hour, right? That minute, maybe it's like the minute before dismissal or the minute before a student goes to a service. And you're like, how is it not that minute gone up yet? We've also had an experience where 1 minute or like an hour has felt like 1 minute, right? We've had both. Because even though time is finite in terms of, yes, 1 hour is 60 minutes, a minute is 60 seconds, the feeling we have from it is limitless. But we have to believe that to be true. So when we are listening to the words we're speaking, when people are stressed, that is my number one thing. I said, start either recording or just listening and paying attention to the words that you're saying. Because when we're stressed, we're in one spot, but we are thinking about somewhere else. And it's usually the future or the past, right? We're worried about something we did, or we're stressed about something we're going to do. We're anxious about something we're going to do. When we pay attention to those thoughts, we can change the language that we're using to things like, it's okay. I always find a way. It always gets done. We often set up arbitrary timelines in our minds that things have to be done Thursday when it's due Tuesday. And so and I had to do this for myself. I was always, if it's not done a week ahead of time, it's late. If I'm not 20 minutes early, I'm late. And that's a limiting belief I learned as a child. Let me say, if my mom was still here,
I'd very different lives here, Lindsay, just on that statement alone.
I would say if my mom was still here, I'd be like, thanks for that one, Mom. So now I know it was a limiting belief from her, but it's okay. We love her. But now I've learned, like, if it's due Tuesday and I do it Monday night, it's okay. If it's due Tuesday and I do it Tuesday morning, it's okay. If it's due Tuesday and something came up and I have to explain myself and say, this is the situation, that's okay too, as long as I'm not doing that every time. But it's giving ourselves permission to be present and to realize time is on our side. It's not the enemy. It's not something we have to work against. But stress comes from this. We have this vision. And for whatever reason, our actions aren't aligning with that vision, and that's okay. The purpose of life is to live it. It is not to create it in a box. It is not to have it be perfect, because perfection is now, right? Wherever you are right now is perfect because you're there. And that's just these standards that I've learned to live by. Now, do I get stressed? Of course I do. The difference now versus the past is when I get stressed, I'm aware of it and I can say what's causing it. What do I need? My husband, he knows what to say to me now to help me with my thoughts. I have friends that I can reach out to and they know the questions to ask so that I can recenter and ground myself. And so it's not about eliminating stress. It's not about eliminating overwhelm, but it's how do we work through it so that we can then continue to grow and expand, and really listening to your thoughts, recognizing where they are, and really creating a mindset where time is your best friend, have really been helpful for me.
All right, I want to talk about some of the free resources that you have on your website too, because you also have this work-life balance sheets, and there's several here that I'm looking at. And I'm just curious, is work-life balance a lie? Is that possible? I mean, as as a mother of multiple children, and that's one thing I've struggled with. Of course, I have a whole fleet in my household, so it's a little bit different. But, for the work-life balance, what are some things that you put in place to help you as an educational leader, but then also, be the mother and wife that you need to be?
Yeah. So I do think it is possible. It's funny that I know why I have it listed work-life balance, because that's what connects to most people. But those that know me know I call it the work-life blend, because it is about blending your lives, right? So again, I mentioned who you are being versus what you are doing. And that includes all aspects of your lives. And so for me, yeah, I have many roles, right? I'm a business owner. I am a behavior specialist. I am a wife. I'm a mom. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I could go on and on. We all could. But what happens, and this was me for years, people would ask me, right? Like, what do you do? Tell me about yourself. And I would forget to even say, like, I'm Lindsay. And so now that is the first thing I say, like, well, I'm Lindsay, and this is me. And these are some things that I do. Because typically when we're asked that, like, hey, tell me about yourself, we will say where we're from, what we do, and then anything related to our family. So whether we are married or, in a relationship, and then any kids or pets. And that is a part of us, but it's not all of us. And so, yes, I do believe there is work-life balance. There's work-life blend, because again, without the belief, we won't take action to make things real for ourselves. So if your mindset is there is no such thing as work-life balance, you won't find it, because you can't. Your mind can't comprehend that we're saying it's not possible. So by saying it is possible, I love the blended piece, because some days work is 80%. It just happens, right? We all have those days. But sometimes my family gets to be 90%. Sometimes I take a mom day and it's 100%, right? And so I get to decide. And so these resources are really aimed at helping you break down, what is it that you can do to still create control, really, and accountability and ownership over your time. And when you're spending it, wherever you are, you're present, so that you can focus on that versus, okay, I'm here with my kids, but I'm thinking about that report that's due tomorrow, right? For me, it's, okay, I'm here with my kids. Oh wait, I had a thought. I put it on the brain dump list. It's out of my mind. I know I will get to it. And now I'm back with my kids. We can't stop necessarily the thoughts from coming, but I don't have to, ruminate on them. I don't have to stress about them. I can get it in a spot, and then I know I'm going to get to it later.
All right, I'm going to switch gears. You have your hand, I swear, in every aspect of the Teach Better team. So will you list out, I was trying to list it out in my brain, and I don't have the brain dump in front of me, so I can't list it on a piece of paper. So if you could just list all of the things that you are part of with the Teach Better team.
So I blog. I blog each month. Although if Carrie's listening, she's like, that is not true.
We always say, when everyone sees Carrie, the first thing that everyone says is, I'm sorry, Carrie. Like, that is the first words. And I've witnessed this in person and virtually.
Yes. Although I do have one coming out this month. I do want
so we're sorry, Carrie. We're sorry.
Yeah. But I do blog. I have a Think Better blog that ideally comes out each month, where again, I try and give a thing to think differently about, right? And to think better about, right? So the one I just wrote was actually about how I don't, even as a behavior specialist, I don't love to call it behavior management. And instead it's behavior leadership or student leadership. No one wants to be a manager. To me, they're simple tweaks, but they make such a big difference. So I do that. I'm on the podcast network with
you are.
DEFINE University show. I am on the Speakers Network because I love speaking to educators about behavior and mindset and wellness and all the things that go in all those categories. Admin Mastermind.
And the Eduprenuer Mastermind too, right?
And the Eduprenuer Mastermind, yes. And then I'm an ambassador.
See? I want to touch on the Eduprenuer Mastermind real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Because you had mentioned you being a business owner, and that is a part of who Lindsay Titus is, and you have DEFINE University. So, well, first off, why don't you explain, because I don't think I've ever actually talked about it on my podcast, but I actually have been able to participate, and I was like a substitute teacher for a couple of weeks where Jeff was out ill, and so I got to lead this phenomenal group of wonderful business-minded folks. So will you just kind of talk about what it is, and then why did you want to join this community?
Yeah. So when you think of Eduprenuer, it's, educator, entrepreneur, kind of pulled together. And so it is a mastermind of, educators, whether they're active right now in, as a school, employee, so to speak. There's some of us that are, we are fully employed by a school district or that, but then we do, in addition to that, we do speaking, consulting, coaching. And then there's some educators that have left, the traditional school sense and are full-time consultants, full-time speakers, full-time content creators in the educational space. And so, but everybody has a business, right? Or is looking to grow a business. And it is a beautiful, I think, collaboration of support, but even though we're all educators at heart, we are all very different. And so when I was looking for a mastermind to join for my business, I was looking for just that. Like, I wanted people that were like-minded in the sense that they understand education, because it is a very unique field, but also from people that are going to be, further along in their journey than I am. And then potentially people that I could help, in their journey too. And then, we have different kind of themes each week. So sometimes somebody's on the hot seat and we listen, and then we give, advice or recommendations, feedback. Other times we have guest speakers come in. Other times we've done book studies, we listen to podcasts, and then we have collaborative conversations about them. And it's interesting because, again, we don't all have the same viewpoints. So you get to, hear from people that think differently or apply the information differently. But it also allows, so for me, especially with, the baby and the job switch and all of this, my momentum for Define You has slowed down a little bit than comparative to 2 years ago. But it's still, I still go, and I love being a part of it because it keeps that momentum going for me at the pace that I can handle right now. So, we make one commitment each week, and sometimes that's all I do for my business, and that's okay. I know I'm still committed, I'm still moving it forward, and it just looks different. But you have this supportive, network that I think anytime you're looking to grow and expand, having a mastermind of people that can help you do that is essential. Whether it's a mastermind or community, just having that network is so critical. And that's why I'm a part of so much of Teach Better, because that's the network that has continued to push me to do more and to figure out who I am and then share it with others.
Well, we love having you in all those different communities. You are phenomenal. So, Lindsay, I'm going to center us back to the why of the podcast, which is for our aspiring or current leaders who are listening. If there's something they can do tomorrow or next week to enhance their leadership journey, what would you recommend them do?
I think right now, I don't remember what I said 2 years ago. It'd be interesting to go back and look or listen. Right now, I want to really share the importance of celebrating where you are right now. I think so often, and I know I did this myself, right? We get our eye on the prize, so to speak, and we have this goal, we have this thing, and that's great, right? We've got to know where we're going. But at the same time, we've got to learn to celebrate now and the excitement. And, I share that with educators a lot. And the number one response I get is but nothing exciting happened today. I'm like, and that's it, right? If we are waiting to celebrate, right? We're waiting for the marriage, the births, the graduations, the promotions, we're gonna be waiting a while because those things don't happen every day. And the only reason that we get there is because of all the little things along the way. So we learn to celebrate all the little things, whether they're in our minds, good, bad, ugly, it doesn't matter. So there are sometimes my celebration list is, you got sworn at today, got yelled at, and sometimes it's made a connection, made a kid laugh. Sometimes it's kid brought me my favorite candy. There's no right or wrong. And so, sometimes I'll push the educators I work with I'm like, you got to make a celebration list of 50 things from today. And they're like, 50 things. I'm like, yeah, 50 things from today, because we've got to get in the habit of celebrating where we're at, knowing that where we are is exactly where we're meant to be, and it's going to get us to the next step. And so wherever you are on your journey, if you're a veteran leader, if you are aspiring, if you are somewhere in the middle, take 5 minutes today and just jot down as many things as you can celebrate, and then keep that momentum going and remind yourself, there's a lot that's happening in the day, but everything is happening to help me grow and expand as the leader that I get to be.
Well, I'm going to make my list, and I'm just going to write I got to talk to Lindsay Titus twice today. I'm just
there you go.
50 times. Today was a good day. All right, my friend. I want you to share all of the different ways people can connect with you, either on your website or on social media.
Yeah. So everything, kind of that we talked about, if you head to defineyouniversity.com, university with YOU is the best place. But I am most active, I would say, on Instagram, which is Lindsay Titus EDU. And then also on Facebook, though, Twitter occasionally, but I love the long captions for Instagram. So, and Facebook. So definitely there. And then obviously the podcast or the website, but reach out. I love to connect. I love, just hearing stories and connecting with educators. So I would love to connect with anybody that's looking for that.
Yeah, Lindsay's a wonderful ear, and she coaches all the time. It's someone I lean on constantly. I'm not going to lie. So I feel so fortunate, Lindsay, to have you as a friend, as a colleague, someone that's embedded in the Teach Better team. It was so fantastic to see you in person. And like I said, anytime I get to hang out with you is a good day. So thank you so much for being on the Aspire podcast again, and for all that you do for the many educators out there in our nation and our world. You are such a bright, phenomenal light in this world. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.